The first time that I got cancer, I did everything the doctors told me to do. I didn't know any better. I was afraid, I was uneducated, and I just wanted the cancer to go away. Plus, my doctor had a white lab coat. He had a ton of confidence, he had a great personality, and we've been trained our whole lives to trust the doctors. But the medicine that they gave me almost killed me, and my cancer came back anyway. Now, I know I can't go back in time, but sometimes I just wish I could, grab myself by the collar and say, there are better ways to beat cancer. But I can't go back in time. And that's why I want to share my story, because it might be your story. It was 2015 when they found the tumor in my chest. It was 12 centimeters, about the size of a grapefruit, and it was encroaching on my heart, stage 3 thymoma cancer. We immediately did a surgery to remove the tumor, but unfortunately we didn't get it all out. There were small, just tiny little specks of the tumor left inside of my body. And if I had known what I know today, if I knew it back then, my cancer journey could have been over right then and there. If my doctors had told me about metabolic cancer therapy and how diet and sugar affect cancer tumor cells, then I could have begun building my immune system, building my body back up and defeating these little microscopic specks. But that is not what the doctors told me to do. They looked at those microscopic specks and they decided that they were gonna pound me with chemotherapy and radiation. I'm not here to tell you that my doctor is an evil person or a stupid person, but I don't think most oncologists are operating with the most up-to-date information. The radiation that they gave me almost destroyed me, and I didn't really need it. And that's the message I want you to come away with. And that's why I'm making this video, because they told me that I absolutely had to do it, and it simply wasn't the case. And as I've begun to beat cancer through metabolic cancer therapy, I've come across an entire community of cancer survivors, people who have beat cancer, and they all share a similar story. The doctor said, just do chemo, just do radiation, eat whatever you want, just make sure that you don't lose weight. Did your doctor tell you these things too? I wish I knew then what I know now, because I never would have done radiation. I can show you the scars too, if I kind of lift this up a little bit. You can see the big scar that goes down my neck from the surgery, but you might also be able to see the small triangular area, which is exactly where they zapped me with the power of the sun and the moon and the stars, radioactive material into my heart. And they pounded me every single day. My kids were so little at that time. I remember my wife was a teacher and I'm an entrepreneur. And so with cancer, bald and sick and tired, I would get up, take my kids to daycare, and then I would come back home, jump in the car, drive myself to radiation where they would zap me, and then I would come back home, pick my kids up, and go about the rest of my day. So they put you in this big machine where your arms are kind of back up like this, and they carve this area out and they dial it in, and all the science is so absolutely amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not unincredible that we as humans have been able to create these machines. But the question is, do the people who undergo radiation actually beat their cancer, or do most of them die? You gotta understand, folks, I did exactly what they told me to do. I did a year of chemotherapy, and then I did 30 straight days of aggressive radiation therapy. And they told me along the way, they said, you're young, you're strong, you can handle it. As if the goal was for me to handle it, when the goal is actually to defeat the cancer and make sure that it never comes back again. Well, I endured their chemotherapy and I endured their radiation, and you know what? That cancer came back anyway. And you know why? Because never once did we actually approach the problem of circulating tumor cells and cancer stem cells. We never dealt with the cause of the cancer. Why was my body creating tumor cells? That's the question. Radiation only deals with the existence of the cells. And let me tell you what happened. I left radiation and I got to ring the bell, and all the nurses congratulated me. And I even gave a little speech, because that's sort of my nature, is to sort of talk these things out. But let me tell you what happened after that day. My body was never the same again. You cannot zap your body like that and think that nothing is going to happen. So even though they sent me home and said all is well, what I didn't know is that the radiation had absolutely decimated my superior vena cava. And every day thereafter, my veins were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I had no idea. All I know is that I was getting so tired and lots of big things were happening in my career. I'm a YouTuber. That's what I do. And I had been invited to go host a conference in Belfast, Ireland with Peter McKinnon and Sean Doris and some of these really huge names. This is a really amazing thing. Some companies flying me over to Belfast. Then after Belfast, it was CVX in Utah. And then after that, it was Video Marketing World in Dallas. And then in Los Angeles for Vid Summit, where I was the MC there. Tons of big things were happening. But I got to tell you guys, every time I would get off the airplane and go to my hotel, I would go take a nap because I was so tired. And I just kept telling myself, oh, I'm healing, I'm getting better. I would wake up and I would be so tired, fatigued. And I don't know if any of my friends from CVX are watching this right now, but I was energetic and pumped up in that lobby because I was so tripped out on Dayquil to just keep me awake and keep me alive. But even after that conference, the first thing I did is I went over to my parents' house who lived in Utah and I slept. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't sleep and I didn't know what was going on. And then it all came to a grinding halt when I woke up with a giant swollen pocket on my neck. My entire face had puffed up. In fact, my wife was terrified. We had no idea what was going on and I had zero energy. So we did all the things, right? We got aspirin and we got ice and we was like trying to reduce the swelling and break the fevers and we still had no idea what was going on. And then my arms began to swell and I can't even tell you the terror that I felt as I looked at my forearm and it was twice as big as it is now. Floppy skin, just floppy, swollen skin. And I called my pastor to come over and to just pray for wisdom for us. Like, what do we do? And he came over and I will never forget the look on his face when he saw me. And he just started to cry. And I'm grateful for friends like that. Justin is an amazing friend and a great pastor. And so we went to the hospital. I had to have an emergency angioplasty and the doctors saw me and they went, wow, how did you let it get? Like, what happened to this guy, you know? And we're like, I don't know, they told us we were fine. They told us everything was good. You know, here's the thing, they were willing to give me all that radiation, but not once, never once did a single doctor say, let's do a follow-up appointment and see what side effects the radiation has created. Nobody asked to do a follow-up health or revitalize appointment after I, took down all their chemicals for thousands and thousands of dollars. After the emergency angioplasty, I felt 100% better. And I remember leaving the hospital with a lot of joy and saying, see, Owen, video can defeat anything. But we also received the news that my SVC, my superior vena cava, had been destroyed and angioplasties would become a regular part of my life. And for those of you that have had an angioplasty, you might go, no big deal. It's just like a quick in out. It's like an outpatient thing, right? You come in, you do it, you leave. But here's the thing. You can only stretch your vein so many times before the vein bursts. And so there's a time limit. Now, I'm not your doctor and I don't have your x-rays. I am not qualified, nor am I willing to accept the responsibility of telling you whether or not you should do radiation. But you absolutely must know my story because I am one of 1,000 people who were told the exact same thing. Because I am one of thousands of people who share the exact same story of permanent damage done by chemotherapy and cancer treatments that did not eliminate the cancer, but instead caused it to go dormant and brought it back a few years later. We've done everything the doctors told us to do, and at the end of the day, they told me there's nothing left, that you are going to die and that your children will grow up powerless. They gave me all of their radiation and they pounded me with chemotherapy, and after all of that failed, said, well, there's nothing more we can do, Mr. Hemsath, and that's when I looked elsewhere. And that's when I discovered metabolic cancer therapy. And that has changed everything. Metabolic cancer therapy have given me the results that the medical industry could never dream to accomplish. They told me I was a dead man. Metabolic therapy said, hold my beer. And I began to do IVC treatments, hyperbaric oxygen chamber treatments, even running. And the doctors told me not to exercise. Exercise was like a major pivot point for me in this whole process. And so if I had to do it again, I would not do radiation, and I would have not done chemotherapy after the surgery. So before you engage in this procedure that could destroy your life, please look up metabolic cancer therapy and use DuckDuckGo. Do not use Google and the mainstream outlets. This is content they are not hoping you'll find, because most of what I do to beat cancer costs nothing. I am here today to tell you that 1 year ago they told me I was gonna die, but here I am right now today, stronger and healthier than I've ever been before. My tumors are on the run, and most of what I do costs me nothing. So that's my story about radiation, and I hope it helps you.